The US dollar has been around for centuries now. In fact, I believe that it was on the 6th of July 1785 in New York City that the US dollar was enlisted as the official currency of the United States of America. But actually it wasn't until 1944 that in the state of New Hampshire, delegates from 44 allied nations met and decided that while it was no longer desirable for their country's currencies to be backed by gold, they could well link their currency to the US dollar, which at the time was itself backed by gold. And it was at this point that the US dollar effectively became the global reserve currency. Before we get into the main section of today's video, I'd like to take this chance to invite you to subscribe to our channel to make sure that you stay up to date with the crypto market. Anyway, at the time in 1944, this was actually quite a good move for the global community, and I'll tell you why. First of all, it facilitated the creation of a strong foundation for flourishing global trade near the end of the war. And after all, the productive capacity of the United States economy and many other countries had improved drastically during wartime. Firstly, because of the quick pace of innovation brought about as a product of a technological race, and secondly because for the first time ever many countries had permitted the participation of females in their workforces on a large scale. Many prominent economists of the time feared that the end of the war would bring about a downturn that dwarfed the Great Depression of the 1930s, and in order to prevent this from happening, or at least lessen the degree of its severity, countries would have to find new ways of employing their increased levels of productivity during peacetime. And one great way to do this was to initiate widespread and large-scale global trade. But the problem was at the time it was unrealistic because too many countries lacked the political systems advanced enough to prevent corruption from guaranteeing a relatively stable currency. And of course, if nobody believes in the stability of anybody else's currency, global trade on a large scale just isn't possible. The only country in the world which probably had a less corrupt and more honest government and political system in 1944 than it does today is the United States of America. At the time, there was no country in the world like America and no currency stronger than the US dollar. And by the way, the reason that I want to take out the time to explain the historical context of where we are today in terms of global currencies is because knowledge is power, and those who do not know the lessons of history are condemned to repeat its mistakes. And so understanding how we got here today is absolutely fundamental for any serious investor. Back then there was something very special about gold that made it a very unique and effective guarantee for a currency. The first was that no matter where you went in the world, gold was pretty much equally valuable and recognized as a stable commodity. Secondly, gold was scarce in supply, and therefore nobody could print more gold, destabilizing the supply and causing hyperinflation. It cost a lot of money to mine gold, and that in itself was a mutual guarantee for the stability in the value of the dollar, or at least no such currency in human history ever has. As for gold, well, gold today just isn't the same as gold was in the 1940s, and that's because gold had far more uses in the 40s than it does today. Technology has advanced and many of these uses have been diminished as cheaper alternative materials have been used instead. Today, the majority of gold's values derive from its use in the jewelry industry, which still gives gold some value, but its days as an indispensable material in industry have been fading and the decline looks set only to accelerate in the future. Especially as younger generations are moving away from gold and other old world stores of value toward newer and more modern forms which they can relate to and actually use on a daily basis. So as you can see, the US dollar, and not just the dollar but pretty much every other major state-issued currency, no longer has the value that they once possessed, and are no longer backed by gold or anything else of value. Actually, even so, the relative value of gold has declined over the years as well. Yes, the market price has increased, but the actual use of gold in industry has fallen. Most of gold's current market valuation comes from the jewelry industry and also from people and institutions holding gold in an effort to try and diminish the persistent eroding effect of inflation on the value of their hard-earned savings. Anyway, that's all for this video. If you're not yet subscribed to our channel, then be sure to do so to gain immediate access to more content like this. Thanks for watching.